Welcome to episode 262 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
Latest hardcover for the Pathfinder Lost Omens line, Grand Bazaar, is available now. And it's hard to summarize. So luckily, joining us to explain what the heck this book is, one of the Lost Omens development leads and the No Direction Network's own, Luis Loza. Hello, Luis.
Hello. Thank you for having me on yet again.
Well, we love having you on. You are extremely informed. You're fun. You're a good guy.
Well, thank you very much.
And a very handsome guest.
Oh.
So, Luis, last Lost Omens hardcover covered a continent. This one covers an outdoor mall.
It didn't cover. It didn't quite cover a continent. Covered
right.
a big old region that might as well be its own continent with how big the book was.
Now, I'm a person who enjoys finding patterns and being able to predict things based on what's come before, and I still have not figured out what the thinking is in like the decision making of what the next Lost Omens hardcover is going to be. So, why the Grand Bazaar? Why was now the time for this?
The part of it was just that we felt that the game was kind of lacking in items and equipment and stuff, and unfortunately the design team was not in a spot to really put out just a big equipment book. We didn't have a spot for Ultimate Equipment 2E in the schedule that really lined up well with, because we knew Secrets of Magic was going to be coming up, we knew Guns and Gears was going to be coming up, and those were two important books for the game that we wanted to have out, and interrupting that flow with 300 pages of items, as fun as that would be, is going to kind of maybe not be the goals that the design team was set out to do. And we thought, well, maybe we can do it on Lost Omens side. We don't want to give you 128 pages of just equipment and charts and stuff, because that's not what a Lost Omens book is. Let's see what our take on Ultimate Equipment would be in the Lost Omens book, and thus Grand Bazaar was born.
And how would you summarize Grand Bazaar?
The Grand Bazaar is a big book of item shops and everything you can find in an enormous marketplace. That includes NPC shopkeeps. It includes information on their shops. It includes lists of items that you would buy there. Just a bunch of cool stuff. But it also includes a lot of interesting things you wouldn't expect to find in an equipment book, because it's about a marketplace first, not necessarily just gear. So you include things like animal companions and familiars and vehicles, archetypes if you buy the right training manuals, or even brand new ancestry.
It kind of felt like if the characters in Lost Omens Legends were trying to sell me stuff.
I think that's great. I like that idea.
So just to be clear, even though I might be kind of poking at you because I'm a little confused about this, that's just me as guy who has to review this book, and I need context for how to discuss it.
Yeah.
I did enjoy this book.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fun book with a lot of character, and it really contextualizes a lot of the content we've seen recently from the previous Lost Omens books.
One of the things I really like about this book too is that it justifies its existence by how good of a read it is. Like a big old collection of rules and archetypes and stuff. This could have easily been a book that, like Ultimate Equipment, is actually best used via one of the many databases that contain these items in them instead of the actual book itself, especially once errata hits and then the paper is not quite as up to date. But this book is best experienced casually flipping through it, and because you've organized it that way, it's each shop and then like a 2-page spread of like the items or services they offer at that shop. And all the items seem to be mostly themed with that shop. I did notice a few instances where I'm pretty sure that this group of items got split up after the fact, as opposed to before the fact. But it definitely felt like I literally was walking down Absalom's Grand Bazaar, popping into a tent and having fun with the whatever NPC was behind the counter and looking around. I mean, I love to shop. I love to go to malls and just spend hours walking around looking. And this book gave me all of those good, fun vibes with like exploding arrows.
Perram, you hit on exactly the thing I was trying to evoke with this book, which is the idea of going window shopping or going through a shop and finding something you weren't expecting. It would have been very easy to say we have the smith and just put all weapons and all magic armor and magic shields and stuff all in the same spot, and that would have been fine, but it would have been a less interesting read to me. And that's why I wanted it to be, hey, let's go into a shop and see what they have. Oh, it's a monster hunting shop. They do have a cool new weapon rune, but they also have snares and this and that. And the idea of flipping through and then discovering, like, oh, wait, what's that thing? When you wouldn't have looked at the shop because, oh, well, that's the wizard shop. I don't need any stuff because I'm playing a fighter. No, by forcing you to flip through the different shops, you are then discovering interesting things. And the fact that you got that feeling makes me so happy.
This is definitely one of the books I would recommend. Is like, if you enjoy reading books at all, buying the physical version of this book is the best way to experience it. Just get a comfy seat and just flip through the pages, enjoy the art, and just browse. And it's like the Sears catalog of Christmas. But I do want to put some of our listeners' mind at ease that there is thankfully in the back one heck of an item chart in case you need to later figure out what was that thing again and which shop was it in, because without this chart I would have had to heavily penalize the book in the review no matter how much I loved it.
Yeah, no, I personally did not want to have this book without a chart like this. So because I knew we were gonna put in that chart in the first place, I felt more comfortable with doing the kind of more experimental kind of browsing style layout for the book.
So this was something I was going to save till the end, but on that note, one of my critiques of the book is that years later, if I'm using some of the content or I'm thinking back on the content and want to apply it to a character, and I'm like, what book is that from? I have a feeling it's going to be the hardest time to remember, oh, right, that's from Grand Bazaar. It's basically, if it's going to take me more than a couple of minutes to remember what book it's from, start with Grand Bazaar and then work backwards.
That is the time in which I will. That is the time in which I will love Archive of Nethys.
Yeah,
when I'm going back and doing builds. But oh my gosh, so let's look at the format of one of these. I'm going to pull one of the stores open here. The Astoria Reliquary, which I love because it's a reverse colonizer wizard.
Page 28 if you're following at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
shout out to Dave Nelson for writing that book or that shop in the shop.
Nice.
Page 29. I accidentally goofed it. 29. All right. So first, look at that regal lizard. He's got a vest and an ascot. He's got an ascot and a monocle. And he is absolutely the world's most authoritative authority on Aveston history and artifacts.
Perram, you're saying he, but the stat block specifically calls out they are agender.
Yes, my apologies. No there problem. Is a I was actually surprised in a good way at how much diversity is like all throughout this book. So I do apologize for misgendering the lizard.
No, I mean, much like we did with Legends, we wanted to make sure we had a variety of just everything in terms of all of our NPC shopkeepers. I mean, we had a lot of different ancestries and ethnicities and of course genders and stuff. So just it's the biggest marketplace in Absalom. Of course, it's going to have a variety of shopkeepers, and we wanted to represent that with the NPCs we included.
So that is what I meant earlier when I was talking about how it contextualized a lot of the content you've been putting out. A lot of the fear when you started introducing a lot of new ancestries is that they were just going to kind of be background noise to the core rulebook ancestries. But no, Lost Omens has been very good about making sure that ethnicities, ancestries that have been introduced in past books get referenced in the books that go after it.
If things had lined up better and we had the ancestries in at the time, I probably would have asked for a Kunrasu shopkeeper or like an Anadi shopkeep in the book. So maybe next time we do another kind of shopkeep or just a slew of NPCs, I'm definitely going to make sure we keep tapping into those new ancestries.
So I do like that the format is that you introduces the NPC first, like the main personality behind this shop is introduced, and usually it's like, here's a bunch of cool things that you're going to get at first glance and interacting with them, and then there's this next level that you'll get to know if you really get to know them, or it's a big secret, and then only then do you get the description of the shop, like after that, because I guess the personality is going to hit hardest, and then you add the next segment in this is a really nice selection of plot hooks that are tie into the shops that would be absolutely wonderful.
There were plenty of times in my history when a player asks, "Hey, what's the shopkeep's name?" And this book was here to solve that problem. It's here to answer that question for you. So whatever shop you're in, if you go to the smith shop, if you go to the magic shop, if you go to the restaurant, we hopefully have at least a shopkeep that you can pluck from here and then use for that to answer that question. And of course, inevitably what happens is someone will come up, "Barkeep, what quests have you heard of?" And now here's your list of quests as well, with everything that's added in as the plot hooks afterwards.
Mhm.
So on that note, one of the ideas that I got just reading through this was having like a tower defense type adventure where like there's a zombie uprising, you get to run into one shop and you just interact with that shopkeeper for hours, which there is definitely content for. Like there's enough inspiration for how to run hours with that one NPC, and you get to use just the equipment in that shop.
That'd be, I hope you picked the right shop for some.
Oh, there's definitely some better shops to pick than others.
I personally would get the vehicle shop and just kind of ride out of there and be, I'm not playing this mini game.
There is one vehicle that I really want to talk about, but before we get there, Perram, you chose the Astoria Reliquary. Why this one specifically for the spread?
I just liked, well, I liked that it was not what we would expect a lizard folk to look like at all, and it's like that, and that is throughout this book. It is like very striking personalities that your characters are going to, your players are going to see and then remember. They're going to remember the, I think I know way more than you do about your own continent lizard, and their ascot. They are going to absolutely remember the dwarf wizard who doesn't run, no, dwarf witch who doesn't run her own shop. Her cat does for her. They're going to remember that character. And each of these characters are like that. And I wanted to pull that one out because it's so fun. Interacting with that character is going to be half the fun of going to that shop. And that's true for most of these entries.
Shout out to Dave Nelson, who is in chat and says, "Hey, that's my shop."
You did great. They all, honestly, they all did great. Like I don't think there's any of these shops that I was bored with.
That's part of the fun with books like this and Legends is usually, at least for Legends with the new NPCs, is we get freelancers kind of free reign to just come up with interesting stuff and have fun with it. Absalom, of course, will be full of memorable characters, so we just let them make memorable characters rather than, oh well, I strictly need a no nonsense guard captain for this. No, just have fun with it.
Actually, can you go into that a little more? What was the outlining and freelance assignment process like?
Oh, outlining was very interesting because this book, we've never done anything like this. Not just like Lost Omens has never done anything like this. I don't think equipment books have ever shown up like this before. And the Legends model kind of got us some framework for that. But the idea was I put most of this outline together, and except for the poppet section, which Eleanor wrote that section of the outline, which I think clearly shines through with the kind of stuff Eleanor does. I specifically asked for I had a list of NPCs. I need, this elf, and I need a dwarf, and I need a halfling. I'm trying to cover as many ancestries as I could, and I was just I think I kind of left it up to random, like you pick whichever one you want, and you kind of I I don't remember the exact process. I think it got
Yeah,
randomly
'cause
assigned.
I
to
have a
each
feeling
shop.
if you did that, you would have ended up with a lot of weapon shops. So how did you
No,
end up with a
no.
toy shop, a kitchen?
So specifically shop wise, I knew that there's a lot of specific types of shops that people tend to run into with games like this. There's a weapon shop, there's a magic shop, and from there I kind of covered. All right, what kind of shops would adventurers go to? Monster hunting, treasure hunting, made a lot of sense. A shop for animals and animal companions is a thing that came up, and we kind of figured out the different archetypes of shops that we wanted to cover. That way, in a game when a GM needed to find the right shop or the right shopkeep for a respective shop, they generally had something that's either the exact type of shop they needed or within spitting distance of the type of shop they were looking for. So specifically, we asked, hey, we want a toy shop. We want a vehicle related shop. We want one that is engineering and stuff like that. From there, the writers or the authors were free to kind of expand it on it as they will. And I also, had my list of ancestries and shopkeeps. I think I just randomly rolled and assigned, okay, this shop has a male dwarf shopkeep, and so on and so forth, and just put them together. And then when the time came to assign the book, people would see the outline and say, okay, here's a toy shop run by a goblin. Here is just a generic shop called Lost and Found run by a dwarf, and so on and so forth. And the other bit was the items, which were a bit trickier. It's hard to ask for a treasure shop and then a weapon shop and a treasure hunting shop and not expect to get like 80% weapons and armor and then just a wand and a staff here and there. And I was afraid that it would lead to an overabundance of specific item categories and just very few of other item categories. So the other thing we did with the outline is we specifically asked, give us 2 pages worth of alchemical items, give us 2 pages of potions and oils, give us 2 pages of food and stuff like that. And then once that was all in and we developed it, then we had the great task of taking all of the items and then assigning them to a shop that feels like it would appropriately fit in that. Some of these were easy. We specifically asked for fashion items, they go in the fashion shop. All the food goes in the restaurant, stuff like that. But some of them, it's okay, we have 2 pages worth of magical weapons, we'll put one here and put one in this shop and that shop, and we just kind of mixed them around until we had all the pages filled.
I want to call out the restaurant because the Mask and Moon, page 46,
by Andrew Mullen.
Andrew, great. Another name I'm familiar with.
And the food items, the tapas, were by Aaron Robbins.
Run by Oak, because I'm not going to even take a chance at trying to pronounce that elf name.
Yeah.
This is magical food for a restaurant, and eating it gives you different bonuses. Eating it is one action and it's an interact. Mm-hmm. One of these is a salad.
So we specifically we realized that was an issue when we were joking about, oh, it's so funny that you eat an entire cake in one action. Right. Oh wait, you eat an entire cake in one action. That doesn't make any sense. I know we're great heroes or fantasy heroes, but there's a limit to what they can do. Even
you hit pause in Skyrim, eat all the cheese.
40 cheese wheels, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think Mythic Valoros has the right feat to even eat 40 cheese wheels in one action. But so that's when we landed on the tapas idea. It's like, okay, they get packaged into bite-sized morsels that still give you the full potency, the full power of the specific food. So it's a fire and iceberg, big old salad, but you're getting essentially little Tupperware pod worth of food and chomping that in one action. So if you were to go to Mask and Moon, you probably could get a whole salad. It would still give you the same effects as it would with the one bite-sized amount. But in terms of combat and exploration, you have the little pocket versions of that.
See, I really wanted to see, like, that does make sense. And in most of these, that's really clear. The reason I called out the salad is I was double checking, and this description didn't seem to line up as well with the others on that topic. But I really wanted to see the barbarian go, dragon, huh? past the Thousand Island.
I like Justin Sluter's comment. I unhinge my jaw and eat the wedding cake as an action.
But yeah, you did think of it in advance, and I am just poking fun.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
but if you want to say
very
you are
great.
eating, if you want to say you're eating entire cakes in one action, feel free. Mechanically, it's still balanced. Nutritionally, your diet may not be balanced at that point, but that's beyond the scope of this game.
Wasn't there like the retrieving wound? Couldn't you have like a backpack salad with the retrieving wound on it, rune, sorry, and you're just chewing as you go?
You'd have to carve a rune into a leaf of lettuce to. I don't know if that works exactly.
Couldn't you like brand the entire salad, put the Tupperware lid on it, put it in your backpack?
Great. I'm looking.
You're
forward
complicating
to doing that.
something very simple, Luis.
I mean, I've been helping my parents set up their pottery business, so I know that you can do some really crazy things with bowls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. Kitsune Warlock, Dustin in chat. You just breed the lettuce to have the runes grow on them.
Oh no! So we need to recast the half elf. It's now a Leshy wizard chef.
So any item of light or negligible bulk, and that would be one of these tapas. So technically, you can put the rune on the salad and call it from your pocket.
I was not positive that mechanically what I was suggesting worked, and I really didn't care. But it's good to know that it does work.
You can only do it once per hour, but there you go. In your hour of need
in a day.
Yeah.
Another one of the character shops I want to call out is the Clockwork Caravan, which this one is got a cool selection of items, and you can get a Clockwork Familiar here, which is important. There's another section of familiars later on, but the hook for this one, where this character is on the lam and being chased by thumpers and from the Clockwork Cathedral. I like that this thing is just an adventure. This is going to be an A plot in an adventure or a campaign session, not a B plot.
Yeah. This is actually a character that got promoted. I don't want to say promoted. A character that got brought back in from actually a back matter article in Tyrant's Grasp #2. There's an article about called Merchants of the Road, which is all about, hey, you're out in a falling apart last wall. There's nowhere to go buy stuff. Wouldn't you know it, we have this back matter article of different merchants that might stroll up that you can use as shopkeepers for this kind of thing. It's almost a proto Grand Bazaar, and the Clockwork Caravan was one of these, and we brought Sin in to do more clockwork stuff, because it's like, why make a new clockwork NPC when we already have a cool one, and let's just continue his story.
It's good. He does not look recycled. Unlike his wagon that looks very much recycled.
He got highlighted, not recycled.
And several of these shops are noted that they are traveling shops. And yeah, it would make sense that they would be at market day in Absalom, but they could be like in Augustin 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, even though they're based out of the Grand Bazaar, we expected most GMs to just kind of pluck whatever shop they needed, because for the most part, the fact that they're in the Grand Bazaar isn't kind of a critical story thread for most of these NPCs. And even still, it wouldn't be too hard to say, oh, I had to pack up shop from the Grand Bazaar and move here because another plot hook now that I've just created.
So I referenced Lost Omens Legends earlier, and how this kind of reminds me very much of that. And this review is going in the same way as Legends, where it feels like we either review every single page or we've just kind of move on and broadly say all the shops are really interesting. They are just an experience that you have to have for yourself. So Perram, is there any last shop you wanted to bring attention to before we move on?
No, I think, but there are some shops are more important than others, and
Go
I
on.
wanted to bring mechanically, like, there's a shop that has a whole bunch of new familiars. There's a shop that has an ancestry, and so we do need
Yeah,
to
so I've
focus
got
on the new
on my
crunchy
outline, I've got
parts.
the gear and the
Uh-huh.
big stuff,
Right.
which includes the ancestry, the archetypes, and the animal companions. So, looking at the gear, the first bullet point I have is all the assistive items that have been added to the game,
Yeah.
which we got a hint at in Guns and Gears, I believe, and now we've got really a full-bore look at assistive items.
I do want to say that originally this book was slated to come out a month before Guns and Gears, and it would have been like, oh well, Guns and Gears continues the tradition established in Grand Bazaar. And if you read the entry for system items in Guns and Gears, it even says, hey, full rules for the basic stuff is in Grand Bazaar, because that was the expectation. It just so happened to be that they came out alongside each other, which is totally fine, and not at all me being upset that they stole our thunder in any way. But yeah, we had Sarah Thompson, who you might know as the person who wrote the 5e battle chair wheelchair rules for 5e. I think they're just homebrewed. I don't think there's any official content for 5e like that at the moment. But we saw her work and we thought, let's bring Sarah on. And they did a great job giving us much more than just wheelchairs. You know, we wanted to cover as many bases as we could. And we tried our hardest to make sure these all work and don't unbalance the game in either direction. You know, no one is getting an advantage because now they're using a wheelchair, and no one is at a disadvantage because they're in a wheelchair or anything like that. We wanted to make sure everyone played on the same playing field, and then just from there built on to cool, exciting stuff like the Minotaur wheelchair and all the other fun magic items.
I enjoyed the Minotaur wheelchair.
I like the leg chair for the magic ones. It's just like your chair just grows really long legs and walks across the room. It's
not a chair.
Super.
It's an animal that looks like a chair.
Oh yeah. Oh,
technically it's an animal.
It's a mount.
Yes. It just so happens to be evolved to look like a chair, and that's very weird, but also very convenient.
I mean, we have monsters that have evolved to look like treasure chests. Yes. So this doesn't.
This is what happens when a mimic goes good.
Yeah. What's weird about this evolution is that it doesn't eat you.
Yeah. And I do want to call out a character that I'm still not sure isn't from Starfinder, which is Clemeth Falk.
And where is Clemeth Falk?
Reclaimed Paradise. It is neutral female orc mechanic.
Yes.
And if you look at her estate, I swear I've seen this place in SoCal.
Yes. I was just in Southern California over the weekend. And yes, those walls are very reminiscent of the stuff that would be around someone's home. Absalom is a modern place in the world of Galarian. So, you know, they're pushing new trends with their types of walls and their grease-stained overalls.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the visuals of the shops?
Yeah. Much with like the NPCs and the type of shop it is, the authors were given free rein to describe things. We had the cool idea of putting out a map for these shops and got to work on that kind of well in advance. So we asked for kind of distinctive looks for these shops, and it worked out really well. So once you look at them on the map, you can obviously see, oh well, there's generic stalls and stuff, and then there's these shops that stand out, and those are the ones that are the ones that you're going to see in this book. And for the most part, it's just meant to be a thing for GMs to show you, oh, you show up at the shop, it looks like this. You know, it's nice to have artwork of NPCs, it's nice to have artwork of shops. We considered having a shot of inside each shop as well, but realized that would be kind of hard to do and eat up a lot of space. So we figured, okay, we either have the inside of the shop or the outside of the shop, and the outside of the shop I think is more usable for GMs who want to use it for other buildings and stuff too. But I think it also kind of tells you a little bit about the stuff to expect inside, maybe the personality of the shopkeep, because of the way they keep their shop. Mary Gleam, the toy shop, Jessica Cataline had, you know, they have their deities holy symbol on the outside, and green and yellow streamers kind of give you a fun idea of the stuff inside. Whereas the which one is the Urban Garden Jewelers is growing out of a tree, which suggests a lot of stuff as well. And then when you meet the shopkeep and he's fleshy, it's like, oh, well, yes, of course, this makes sense. So it's kind of a fun thing to build on and just flesh things out just all that more.
There's also the fun Where's Waldo effect of just looking at the page where it's overwhelming with stuff and details. But then when you start zooming in with your eyes, you're like, oh no, those shops are really interesting, and I do want to know, what is this tower with like the silver roof, and what is this this caravan with just the giant clockwork guard outside of it?
Did you have a Waldo?
No.
Oh man.
The map, we considered maybe having it like a folded map that you could unfold and like you do with some of our other books, like you know, the Inner Sea or the World Guide had a map of that, and didn't work out for us quite then, but we still had it in the book, and the idea was to evoke kind of those carnival or amusement park maps that are very exaggerated. Yes. Where the shops that stand out are obvious things and everything else is just not to scale or not representative of what you're seeing around. So the fact that there's a bunch of generic stalls around is meant to imply that these stalls can be anything. That's not what they actually look like. The only things that really matter are the stalls that are featured in this book. The shops obviously have specific detail because those are the ones that matter, and the rest is just kind of there, so it's not a blank area. And you can use those as you like, or manipulate those or change those as you like.
Well, you say they're generic, but you can see some interesting details. There's this one with the spool and thread. There's the candy shop not too far from it.
Yeah.
Like, there's still shops that stand out, and even though the book doesn't tell us anything about them, I want to know more.
Yeah. I gave our artists, I gave our art team, who gave our artists, a list of some of the other shops in the back alley shop section that said, hey, there's like a food shop and there's a tailor and stuff. So if you want to include some of those for fun, those are our Where's Waldo or Where's Wally thing going on here, where you can point to like, oh, there's a candy shop, and that point that references this other shop and stuff like that. But it can also just be there for inspiration, like, oh, maybe I want to use this candy shop that I didn't realize was there, and I'm going to make up my own NPC or a cool spot to make new, magical candy that works like the other magical food and does cool stuff.
In French, Waldo was Charlie. We've got some interesting comments from chat we should focus in on. Where's Lava Being's question? Sorry, there were suddenly a whole bunch of comments. I think it was Lava Being who was saying, is there like a secret underground beneath the Grand Bazaar?
There is I think there's an equivalent of a red light district in or around the Grand Bazaar. I can't remember off the top of my head because I worked on the Absalom book a while back. I know that there's references to that, and there's some other kind of less family friendly shops about. There's not a literal underground, but there's definitely like black market and kind of shady back alley kind of style shops that you're able to add or work with based on the stuff that's in the other books as well.
Continuing, Warlock says, release a poster.
I mean,
demand, not a question.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I will print off a poster here at my house and you can come pick it up.
Love Being, does the map fit into the larger city map of Absalom coming in the future?
It should. In terms of like general shape of it, you should just be able to pluck this and put it in right there. I think if you look at the amazingly big map from Absalom, it might not map 1-to-1, where like this stall is technically not oriented the right way and this stall is a little bigger than it shows up on the Grand Bazaar map. But in terms of the general Grand Bazaar, yeah, we started with the shape of that area and use that as a foundation for this map that we featured in the book.
Perram, we ready to talk about some vehicles?
That's not where I thought you were going, but sure.
Oh, where did you think I was going?
I thought we were going to go with animal companions, but let's go vehicles.
Yeah, I've got animal companions separate from gear. And what is this? Reclaimed paragraphs. Yeah, we're even in the right section. Come on, Perram. We got to do the vehicles now.
I've since been showing off the maps and other things. Like I'm 14 pictures beyond that right now.
There's a couple of things that I really appreciate about this vehicle spread. One is that you managed to fit a creature stat block in the sidebar. Ethereal Sailor. Any thoughts or comments on that?
That's just a thing we've done before. If you read the Unseen Servant spell in the core rulebook, it has an Unseen Servant stat block in the sidebar. So this is just a tougher version of Unseen Servant if you need a level 6 very bad monster to fight. This is not the type of monster to fight or to really do anything with. But because of the way we mentioned that the folding boat has ghost sailors that do stuff for you, we figured if you need them for whatever reason, here's stats in case a sea serpent starts attacking and killing off your ghost crew.
So I know you were saying that this book was supposed to come out before Guns and Gears, but Guns and Gears laid the groundwork for vehicles, and
Game Mastery Guide did.
The Game Mastery Guide did, didn't it?
Yes.
That's how you were able to go so far, off kilter with some of the concepts.
Yes.
I still question whether or not the firework pogo should count as a vehicle.
I could show you a picture of the firework pogo that G.I. Joe released.
Oh,
I'm doing that right now.
I mean, the Velocipede is also kind of questionably a vehicle. But there you go.
And why wouldn't it be a vehicle? It's got, a movement.
It sure does. But I don't think the rules were expecting bicycles to be represented in the game. And so they got stretched pretty far, just like they did with the pogo.
You know what got stretched really far, though? This folding boat.
Yes.
When it was unpacked.
I sure did. A fun fact about that folding boat, and a variety of items in this book, or entries in this book, is I abuse my power a little bit to ask for specific things. So I asked specifically for folding boat and the terror bird and the beetle and a few other things to be in this boat, so I wouldn't have to stat them up for my home games.
Do I have you to thank for Capybara?
No, that one was Ashton. They did that on their own. Ashton Sperry, who wrote the Animal Companions, they did that all on their own. But I wasn't about to turn down a capybara.
Yeah, I have a capybara story. So like we have our local country farms. I'm from Eastern Kentucky. This is banjos and stuff around here, and we have our country farms. And like always, there's always a booth that sets up and it's see the largest mouse in the world. It's $2, and then you give them the $2 because I knew what I was going to get. And I walked in, and they let you pet a capybara. I was like, this is great. You didn't need to lie about it being a mouse. If you told me pet a capybara, I'd have give you $10.
I mean, it is the world's largest rodent, I believe. So
right.
It was only a little bit of a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I know I was going to get a capybara, they could have charged a lot more than $2.
I saw a puppet show about the capybara at the Montreal Biodome.
Mm-hmm.
Capybaras are fun. They're lovely creatures.
Fun.
Hey, Daggle's in chat. Howdy, Daggle.
Yep.
So you said you weren't going to let up a chance to introduce the terror bird. Why the terror bird? Why do you like it so much?
Because Owen's character in Valiant rides a terror bird, and I didn't want to stat up an animal companion. Same with Avi's riding beetle. So eventually you might see some kind of lizard with the mount trait and some kind of spider with the mount trait, but who knows if they'll let me get away with that now that I've revealed my secrets.
I mean, I think getting cool animals slipped in is a fringe benefit that you've more than earned with the work your team has been doing on these books.
And I mean, to be fair, Terror Bird was a rideable animal companion back in 1E, so I could have been like, well, we were just converting the 1E one, so if people demanded it, says the guy who also wrote the Terror Bird entry for Bestiary 3 and wanted to also see that as another companion.
There aren't a lot of boring items in here at all. Just flipping through the items, it's like even the weapons are a bit extra. Like the it's one of the very first
coil.
ones. The brilliant rapier isn't just
one,
a rapier with brilliant. It's so brilliant it's lost all physical form.
Yeah.
It does only fire damage now, but it has the versatile trait to change that to good or positive, and that gives a toy. That weapon is a toy for martial characters who do not get to play with toys very often like this. And so I really loved seeing that, and then more items like that throughout the book, which were, these are all fun items. When we talk about why we didn't like that the core magic items in PF1 had to exist for the math to work, and to some extent some of that still exists in PF2, but because straight up stats are boring, and straight up stats that you feel are mandatory are boring, and what kind of magic items people talk about and do stories about are the kinds you put in this book, which are like, it's a pogo stick that lets you jump on fire. It's arrows that you shoot into the air and then rain down a hail of arrows all across the entire battlefield. Like, all of these things in here are very cool. A lot of them are consumable, but none of them are just, you get +2 to your athletics checks while wearing this item.
Part of that is that the core rulebook has those covered already, so we don't necessarily need to make more of those. There are probably still some combinations of, oh, I want a thing that gives me a bonus to athletics and specifically a bonus to shove rather than a bonus to jump, right? You can probably do that and cover those. Those aren't too hard. Those are also not too hard to reskin as a GM and kind of get those into the game. So because those were already there, and because for the most part people had just free reign to do whatever they wanted with their items, aside from the occasional give me a beetle or give me a folding boat, they got to be creative. I mean, we don't need +1 items, +2 items anymore. So what does that mean? Well, we got to start expanding into more creative stuff and more fun stuff, because that's kind of what Lost Omens does, is it gives you more flavor and hopefully more interesting items to work with than just a giant 300-page book of kind of filling in all the gaps first and then doing the rest later. Ryan's just enraptured in the book.
Sorry, yeah,
I was stalling for time, Ryan, if you didn't catch the tactic.
I thought you were just having conversation.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's a heck of a compliment that you're still enraptured even mid-interview.
Sorry, there's a lot we could talk about,
yes.
But I don't want to get lost in the minutiae.
You specifically called out the vehicles. Is there a specific vehicle you wanted to talk
mostly
about?
The pogo, but then again, I pictured it as the Cobra Pogo ballistic ball. It was only in Perram describing it that it's like, oh no, this is probably a pogo stick. Yes. I was just picturing a dome that you sit in and it launches you skyward.
There was a post on Reddit, on the Pathfinder 2e Reddit, a few days ago, that someone did art for the pogo, which was really cool. So if you track that down, I think you can just search for Lost Omens and find the right art, or a Grand Bazaar on the subreddit and find the right art for that. They did that in the Impossible Cake and the Clockwork Heels, which looked great. And now that it's in art, I'm kicking myself for not actually having ordered art of that and just been like, sure, a boat. No, a pogo stick. We need to show you what that looks like instead of what a boat looks like.
Dustin found it, and oh wow, this is much more impressive art than I was expecting.
Yes, if you told me that was from one of our books or from an upcoming item card or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I just hadn't seen it yet. No, it's great quality.
Are we getting Grand Bazaar item cards?
If enough people ask for it, I'm sure.
I'm asking for it.
There's plenty to fill item cards with. I'm sure we could do 2 decks worth out of this book.
Remember, when you go ask on the Paizo forums, because that's where they like us to ask.
But you can also ask everywhere else, but make sure to hit up the Paizo forums too.
I think it's time to talk about the Poppet.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to talk about Poppet.
Why is there even an ancestry in this book?
So the idea being that the Grand Bazaar has, you can find anything at the Grand Bazaar, expanded greatly once we realized, oh yeah, that doesn't have to be items, does it? It doesn't just have to be items. We've like, oh, animal companions, familiars, that makes sense. And I think it was Eleanor suggested, what if it was an ancestry? Well, what ancestry would be there? And she said Poppet, because you'd have dolls and stuff, and one of them might just happen to be an actual living Poppet. There weren't playable Poppets in 1E, but that doesn't mean we can't do them now. And we tried it, and you know what? I think it's an amazing success. And it kind of ended up connecting to an unwritten theme for the year, which is ancestries in the Lost Omens books. So you're getting the ancestry guide, and then Mwangi had ancestries. Now this has ancestries, and Absalom has the Azorketi, the Gilman in it. Monsters and Myth doesn't have that, but technically, for the books this year, have ancestries. So it's cool. It happens to work out well. And then Ron Lundeen, he's great at writing and doing stuff, and yeah, he didn't fail us again, and got us a wonderful ancestry that's just very whimsical, very fun, and I think very touching, actually. Like the idea that some of these Poppets come to life just because a child wishes hard enough and believes that they would like their friend to come to life.
Yeah,
it's
that was
great.
The Wishborn Poppet. You were wished to life either by a powerful spellcaster or by the earnest desire of an innocent person who loved you very much. Like that's just nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very. Then you have the opposite of it. You have the Ghost Poppet, which is awkward because it's brought to life by the fragment of a person's life force, possibly, but not always at the moment of their death. You get creepy dolls and cute dolls.
Yeah, we want
at the same time.
There's potential for a lot of different stories and lots of different characters with it, which I think is great.
I really love this. It's a great idea, and it further plays into the rallying cry I've been saying for second edition, which is that it's finally embracing the fun that this universe has to offer, and Poppet absolutely slides into that slot very easily.
There's also, like, the ancestry feats are really fun. They really play on the idea that this is a toy. It has toy-like functions, and now it's a toy adventurer. So where do the two worlds collide? Impossible Gossip is really cool, where it's just talking to not just other toys, but any three-dimensional inanimate object crafted to mimic a creature's appearance. So you could be talking to statues in a dungeon in a manner and just getting the hot gossip from what's been going on when people are talking and they think they're alone, but they're not.
I think it was.
But Fluff is another one of those wonderful ancestry feat names.
It didn't quite work out how I was imagining in my head, but because of it being two different artists. But I'd like to imagine that the doll in the section right before the Poppet in the Mary Gleam shop is a rabbit doll, and then later comes to life as the rabbit in the Poppet ancestry.
Now that particular picture has basically taken Pathfinder Twitter by storm.
I mean, I believe it. It's I mean, if it didn't take that by storm, I don't know. I think we didn't do our job correctly with making these Poppets.
Now you were talking about trends, and we were talking to Michael Sayer last episode, and he was talking about how the construct brought to life or something, rare background was your idea because you wanted the Pinocchio adventurer, and now you've got the Velveteen Rabbit adventurer. Like, is there an end game for this?
I won't say one way or the other, but I'm sure people wouldn't be very upset if something eventually came out and they started calling it Weeby Poppets.
Puppet stories. No, that's not. Anyway, I was trying to go for Toy Story, but just Puppet stories does not explain my joke well enough.
I think Toy Story does still work here. They would be the very definition of Poppets.
Sure.
We be toys.
I'm sure we can get away with calling something Toy Story.
On a similar but different note is this this horrific monstrosity, the pipe fox.
Yes. Pipe fox art this time wasn't as cute as the one pipe fox, and that's fine.
Yeah, there's different foxes.
Yeah, there's different foxes, and sometimes they get angry.
I've got two cats. One is my house cat that I love very much and take care of, and she meticulously grooms her fur every day. And then there's the stray that I take care of called Festus. This fox reminds me of Festus.
Oh, there you go. Is Festus a familiar level cat?
I believe so, because Festus was absolutely not scared by Ben when he showed up.
Ben, the bear that comes by.
the actually much larger than normal black bear. Usually black bears do not get that big. I was surprised how big that bear was.
But you could still take him, right? In a fight?
I mean, I wouldn't want to. And I probably couldn't. I probably couldn't even take the smaller bear, but it's a black bear, so I'm not afraid of it.
Okay.
Continuing, Warlock is saying that his character was almost killed by a pipe fox 48 hours ago.
Oh, wonderful.
It might have been this one, even.
Yeah. And yet, his comment before that was pipe fox, all caps, purple heart.
And honestly, I think with the familiars, I wanted to call this out because there's some actually really... a lot of holes got patched here. We finally get gills for aquatic familiars. Mm-hmm. We finally get recall familiar, so we can you can summon the familiar. I need you, Archimedes, right now.
Yeah,
and pull the poppet out the hat. Like, you can't have poppet familiars yet, so maybe that's
you
the
can.
Next hole that
they're in Pathfinder Society Guide, actually.
Oh,
they're already out.
Never mind.
So you can be a poppet with a poppet familiar. And also, if you do things right, you can also be an inventor and have a construct buddy as well, and just be a massive toy maker.
I like it.
Yeah, the familiar abilities, Tineke Bowman did that, and it's very easy to be this kind of early on in the game and kind of find those gaps that you feel are kind of missing, but then do interesting things. Like the second opinion is really funny to me, where you do a recall knowledge, and then your familiar is like, I don't think that's right. I
do like that one. I also like Ambassador, which plays into a lot of the characters I like to play, which are like charismatic spellcasters.
Yeah.
So your familiar just knows when to be cute on cue, and it helps you during diplomacy checks.
I'm sure Cabbage, the cat that runs the Kitten Slumber Shop, has the ambassador ability to help sales.
Right. And the cool thing about familiar abilities is in 2E, you can just swap those in and out as you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to talk about the archetypes?
Yep. Well, right. I do want to point out that the Pipe Fox definitely dropped Ambassador this morning. All right, so where are we going?
The
page 120, ads. All the way at the end, the archetypes.
Well, it starts technically with the Absalom ads.
Yeah, and the most ripped halfling I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The Eagle Knight in full plate mail got nothing on this dude.
No. I mean, that's why he sells the best training manuals in all of Galarian, right? I personally had the idea of the Charles Atlas comic book ads that say, hey, stop being a wimp and get buff like me with my 40-page manual for $2. And I'm sure there are things like that in Galarian. Let's put one of those in there. Oh, it'd be funny if he was a halfling. And then it worked out that, well, after assigning a lot of these shopkeepers, kind of running out of a spot for the halflings, I guess he's got to be the one for this ad. And yeah, the ad is kind of there to explain why are there archetypes. It's because you can go into the Grand Bazaar and buy one of these training manuals, or order one of them and have them shipped from Absalom out to wherever you are, in the middle of a dungeon, and learn new techniques for the kind of stuff that you're wanting to do out as an adventurer.
Is that the connection? I did not catch that
Yes.
at all. I thought
you-
this was just a fun ad.
It is, but if you read through his thing, he has a new training manual. Once ordered my new training manual, the Captivator, before it sold out, and the Captivator is one of these archetypes. And the idea is that he sells these training manuals that teach you these new archetypes. And also, it's kind of a very poor attempt to explain, like, oh, if I retrain, how did I retrain in the middle of an adventure? I ordered one of these manuals and I retrained to now I have a different feat, or I have a new archetype or something.
Is this when we have to put in the sponsored by Skillshare ad break?
All right, so we've got the Captivator.
Mhm.
Captivator is absolutely charming, and it's a diplomancer. It's a great archetype for the kind of characters you were just describing, Perram, a high charisma spellcaster.
Yeah, Glanville would totally take this archetype. This is absolutely up his alley.
So what were you going for with the Captivator, Luis?
I wasn't going for anything with the Captivator nor the Wrestler, because these are actually archetypes that were intended to fit in the APG and didn't make the cut because of space. And that's partially why we included an archetype section for this book. It's like, well, we have these archetypes, and I don't know when we're going to have a chance to put them out in a different book. There's not going to be an APG2 anytime soon, or if at all, So maybe we can include them in the Grand Bazaar. Came up with the idea for the training manuals. Okay, we have these. So I'm pretty sure the design team wanted a high charisma kind of. Enchantment is, I think, a very popular school of magic, and giving you the I'm full on enchantment or full on illusion archetype makes a lot of sense. Similarly, hey, full on grappling. You can't stop Mike Sayer from putting in luchadors and wrestlers into the game.
Yes, and I'm sure you fought him tooth and nail.
The only troubles we had really with Mike were deciding what kind of mask this luchador wore.
So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because by the time I got to the archetype section, I felt like I'd stumbled into a different book.
Yeah.
And you're saying that a different book stumbled into this one.
In a way, yes, but it also kind of leans into that idea that anything can be found at the Grand Bazaar. So even training and new ways to fight and new ways to use spells might be something that you pay money to learn, or at least, there might be someone that can teach you here in the Grand Bazaar or in Greater Absalom.
So you mentioned the Captivator and the Wrestler, but you kind of skipped over the Spell Trickster. Why is this one different from the other two? Spell
Trickster, once we knew that we were going to add archetypes, and based on our page count and stuff, we saw that we had a couple more pages left. Let's fill that with another archetype. And there was a set of feats in 1E that we really liked, in particular because they're just really interesting. If you remember the first edition equipment trick feats that were originally out of Adventurer's Armory, they you take the feat and specifically be like, oh, equipment trick rope, right, or equipment trick sheath, and then you got different cool things that you could do with that. Eventually, near the end of first edition, I don't know how many people actually caught wind of them coming out, because it was literally, I think, the last handful of books. I was already a developer by that point. So Distant Realms, which was a planar focus book, and later Chronicle Legends, which expanded on a feat called Magic Trick, which originally started with the floating disc spell. You take the Magic Trick floating disc spell, or Magic Trick floating disc feat to modify the ways that you can do stuff with floating disc, and it would let you ride it and do a lot of different cool things. We expanded on that to do things with fireballs and a bunch of different spells, obscuring mist and stuff like that. We really liked that. We thought it was super cool. And seeing as it took so long to get something like that in first edition, we wanted to kind of get that out earlier in the game. We thought, let's have Mr. Galarian teach you how to do different spell tricks. And the Spell Trickster was born. Matt Morris did a great job with getting us started with this. I think there's a potential for entire books worth of just new feats for this, because you can come up with 4 or 5 tricks for every spell in the book, and that'd be great. that's perfect fodder for Infinite. I think Dustin Knight actually has a couple of those already up on Infinite, so if you want to do more spellcaster stuff, you can do that. But we just thought it's really neat, and wanted to add it in here because Eleanor and I really liked that set of feats the first time around, and we didn't want to see them ignored or forgotten, and we have the power to put them in.
And I had the same comment to say when they launched in first edition, which is when I talk about, if long-term listeners of the podcast will hear me say, oh, well, I'm playing a wizard, so I don't care about feats. They're all boring for wizard. Because, if for a very long time, that was true. You get your stat buff feats for the spell schools you're doing. Like, so a few of them, every single wizard I know takes improved initiative because you have to do that before the fighter gets in, or else you're going to nuke the fighter. Various other reasons. These are the kind of feats I want to take as a wizard. I want to say my wizard loves fireball, and I want the option to just do like the fireball feat. The trick lets you split the fireball into two 10-foot balls instead of one big one, which is super handy. That is incredibly handy, and somebody that specializes in fireball would learn to do things like that. You mentioned Disc Rider already. I like that when you start, it's all cantrips. So like you can use Mage Hand to try to pick locks, which is an interesting way to do things. And absolutely every person that learns about the spell Mage Hand tries to do that once before they learn you can't. Well, now you can.
Yeah, and we realize this fun stuff is potentially the kind of thing you would want to just do without having to dip into an archetype. So we even give you that sidebar that says, you know what, if you want, talk to your GM, and you might be able to just take these as class feats without having to get into the archetype, just so you can be like, I'm the amazing master of fireballs. I'm not necessarily a spell trickster, that because the way the feats work, you'd have to then have the Mage Hand and like a light feat for a while before you get into all the fireball stuff. But I think they're fun rewards to give out that aren't just gold or experience. It's just an interesting way to reward people.
Also, like, so in the Spell Trickster dedication, it gives you up to 2 4th level Spell Trickster archetype feats as long as you beat the spellcaster prerequisite. Like, I love that there's no feat tax here, that it's taking the dedication gives you automatically 2 of the cantrip tricks right off the bat as long as you have enough cantrips. And already it feels like any spellcaster should be looking at this as their second level feat, because it modifies what you're already doing, adds a lot of depth to what your spell arsenal without really affecting the theme of your character in any way. Any spellcaster can be a spell trickster.
That's what we were shooting for, is to just make this kind of open for anyone to take. And also, it wouldn't be fun if you had to take this feat and then sit around for 2 more levels before you can start doing the cool stuff that you intended to do.
Right. And I love that you knew
archetypes.
That. So I also want to call out that these the spell tricks don't take any extra actions or any extra cost. You paid the cost when you took the feat, so you get to do this cool thing. Whereas like in first edition, a lot of the cool things you could do like this were always wrapped up in like as a form of meta magic, where it would take higher level slots or more actions or various other ways that you paid once when you took the feat, and then you paid again every time you used it.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of the feat system nowadays in 2E, because they're also having levels as prerequisites. We can just say, all right, here's the thing that we want you to be able to do. We don't think you should be able to do that till at least 8th level, but by the time 8th level rolls around, we're fine with you just doing that willy-nilly whenever you want. So that's not a thing you could really do with magic trick or equipment trick in 1E, because you also had to meet other prerequisites to do specific tricks. You'd have to have a certain number of skill ranks, or you'd have to have an additional feat to do the specific trick, and that's not as fun.
The feat chain thing is never fun. Like I hate taking feats I don't want just to get feats I want.
So how is the amazing Mr. Galarian qualified to teach me how to be a spell trickster?
He has access to a printing press and the mail delivery system. I mean, you've seen the amazing things he's done.
Wait a minute. You The amazing Mr. Galarian?
In a way, I guess. I am slightly analogous to him. I don't think I have a clean onesie that will look as good on me as it does on him, but kind of there. I can. I don't think I can grow hair on my feet, but otherwise I can probably get up to to matching him in physique.
Oh, we've got some moonshine that'll solve that problem up this way.
Finally, we've got the Wrestler, which is another archetype that, like, when you're saying this was originally slated for the APG, that makes a lot of sense, because this is like a very core concept, very fun archetype feats that I really can see a lot of my characters taking. One specifically, if I ever bring Mono Hombre into second edition. Yeah, not much to say other than that I love it.
He's a wrestler. You can be a wrestler. I mean, you can do all the fun stuff, and I mean, it kind of gets some 1E stuff. If you remember the Totori monk from 1E, which was a great grappler and could like lock people in from even teleporting away, can eventually do that kind of stuff. So yeah, just kind of fulfills a particular type of fantasy that you're looking to do.
Yeah, I was sold the second I read Suplex.
So, as someone who has dabbled with designing this type of character before, I never would have had the guts to name an ability Suplex. That just feels a little too pop cultural. But it feels like second edition has a little more leniency as far as going into pop culture names and being a little more playful with how it names its rules.
A little more fun, a little more casual, which I think is great. And also naming something like a over the head throw or something isn't as evocative as Suplex, and I think having particular names like Suplex do a lot to sell what this feat is trying to do. So being able to know what this is trying to do before you even start reading the mechanics does help a lot with understanding once you actually start reading the mechanics.
Can we do a whole wrestling league?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's do it.
We can set up a Regal Rumble at some point. I'm sure we can get enough people. We can get 40 characters to come in.
Can all of the wrestlers be puppets?
Yes. I just imagine a child playing with their wrestling toys.
Yeah.
And wishing so hard that they could actually fight, and then they all come to life. So yeah, there you go. That's an adventure ready to be written for Infinite.
All right, well, I got some writing to do. And then that brings us to the tables that Perram already talked about, and that's Grand Bazaar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a thin book, but it is packed.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's just another one of those Lost Omens books that is an experience to read. It's really enjoyable. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, thanks to everyone there in the credits, right? All those authors did fantastic work. And of course, the art just elevates it all the further. It is very much one of the most fun books to read, I think. There's a lot of silliness, there's a lot of just fun going on. I think that's a lot of what Tui's doing, is not being afraid to kind of be a little less serious sometimes and just kind of run with some of the goofiness that exists in these games.
I mean, in the last book, we talked about Lim was standing between two Tesla coils and just laughing maniacally. That's about how I feel when I read the books these days, and that's a great thing.
Lava Being is asking, do wrestlers get familiars with a manager archetype? How do we make that happen, Luis?
If you play a gnome wrestler, you can get a familiar right out of the gate as a first level ancestry feat. So
perfect answer. Go on.
And when you come in, people can ask, hey, where are you from? You can say from parts unknown, because no one knows where you came from in the first world. Give them the ambassador familiar trait. And then, I don't know, there's probably some kayfabe one that we can come up with for the familiar.
Is there any kind of like just sentient floating brain familiar yet?
Familiars don't have specific appearances. Okay. You can make them be whatever you want. So yes,
All right.
So the mastermind familiar.
I like it. So there we go. 11B, you got any other suggestions? Because I like where we're going with this.
That's 1 out of 40. We got to do 39 more wrestlers for our adventure.
All right, we're not going to actually do that, though,
No,
Luis. I'm sorry. I know
fine.
you were 100% serious with that suggestion, but we got to move on. We've got a couple of news items that we could really cover in the shoutouts, I think. Perram, we're just going to do a news shoutout segment again.
Yes.
Our classic, might as well put them together segment.
You got to sing wrap-up news shoutouts, though.
I will in a second. Luis, are you going to stick around for the whole show, or are we done with you?
Yeah, I'm sticking around through the private sanctum.
All right, awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, what are you suggesting, Perram? Wrap-ups, news shoutouts.
Yes.
I don't. All right, wrap-ups, news shoutouts, wrap-ups, and news and shoutouts.
Awesome. I'll cut that in case I need it again.
I'll send you a better one. Thank you for joining us for episode 262 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, a couple of items that deserve your attention. One of them is actually a very big news item, but not so big that it deserves its own news segment, and that is Pathfinder Nexus. There is a new partnership with Demiplane to create an unofficial digital tool set for Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Yeah, and it looks really nice. Like what I've looked through, like they have a really good trailer up. The website itself looks extremely competently well made. It very much reminds me hardcore of D&D Beyond. I do use D&D Beyond on a weekly basis for my weekly 5e game.
You have a weekly 5e game?
Yeah.
All right.
We're playing through Tomb of Annihilation.
Neat.
I needed to know what 5e was like.
All right, I didn't know it was weekly. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and it's fun. I'm playing a kobold. It's in.
Oh, you're playing. You're not running.
Yeah. Well, my friend Derek, I got him to GM because I do not know 5e and wanted to learn it well, and so that's how that happened. It's a fun game. I like it.
Okay. But we were talking about Nexus.
Yes, Nexus. The reason I mentioned it, D&D Beyond is awesome. This looks like D&D Beyond for Pathfinder, but cheaper, which is also awesome. So this is a separate product. It is an online resource character creator. They have some voice software built in. I don't know how useful that's going to be. I've not checked out anything like that on Beyond. My groups all use Discord. I know most people use Discord. But hey, it's an extra feature. As well as like you buy and how you do it is you buy the book. You get access to that book's content in this environment. The books seem to be about half price what the book would be physically. So $60 core rulebook is $30 on Nexus. And if you already own the book in some form on the Paizo.com account, so if you bought the book from Paizo or you have the PDF from Paizo, you get a discount if you buy it from Nexus. So there is that. But you are having to buy the books again.
What is
if you
the
want
discount?
access to this week. I do not know. I think it was 15%, but I could be wrong.
Was that 1.5 or 5.0?
1.5.
Okay.
I do not know.
Looking at the site right now, it seems that the prices seem to be discounted about $10 or so for having the account linked.
Oh, well, that would be
good.
more than that. That's almost 30%.
And there is
it's more than 30%.
Inversely too, in that if you buy a book through Nexus and then link your Paizo.com account, it gives you a free PDF if you didn't already have it.
Oh,
so that might be a way for cool. If you're just getting into the game, you might just decide, okay, I want PDFs. I'm going to buy them through Nexus and then get them all that way, in addition to just having them on Nexus.
That's smart, because I have a feeling Nexus, like reading the rulebook won't be as fun. Referencing it will be extremely useful, but reading it, you'll want to get the PDF, and so there's a reason to own both, and that's a cool way of doing it.
and this is going to live and die on how well it integrates with other toys and how easy it is to use and how easy it is to share. When I really like Beyond, and I can see why that's such a popular product. I do. If this had launched with 2E, I would have probably been all in immediately. If it, just spending my own money on this, and because this is perfect, it's nice and high quality. I do not know if I would be now, because we've established alternatives like Path Builder, and we all love archives and stuff. But this is definitely much better presented than any of those options, and it's better than Hero Lab by a fair margin too.
And do I need to remind you what happened with 4th edition when they tried to relaunch with digital tools and the game all at the same time?
Yes, that was not great. Those tools were awesome.
Eventually.
No, they were always awesome. We didn't get all of them.
Right, yes. So the ones that were delivered were awesome. But it also confused the messaging when it was launched. Like, there was a lot of reasons it was not great.
Right. And they didn't pull those down till like years and years later, too. Like, I still had full access to everything in 4th edition, like all the rules for 4th edition, several years after I stopped playing the game and they stopped publishing it.
This Nexus announcement has gone very strange directions.
Yeah, it looks great. It really does look great. It looks like it's a great way to get into the game and the tools. This isn't going to be like Path Builder, because Path Builder is OGL, so you can't. They can't do all the cool pictures and text and fluff that we love so much. Half the reason, like, I love Grand Bazaar. The version of Grand Bazaar that will appear in Path Builder, because all the fun has to be stripped out and turned into just the raw numbers, would not be a book I'm interested in.
So there is a free primer of Pathfinder Nexus available now. And what's interesting, you can pre-order the additional Pathfinder books, and it says you'll get early access, which to me means that you're not going to have any kind of wait period between when a hardcover is released and when you get the Nexus content. In fact, the opposite. You're going to get it before you even get your hardcover.
Interesting.
Valuable.
Andy. Yeah. We haven't got to touch it yet. Everything we've seen from the announcements, everything I've seen from the trailers and the website look great. I won't be able to tell more of my opinions on it till I get to touch it.
Next news item, something that just went up on the Paizo blog, is that Paizo has expanded its leadership team. It's added 2 additional members of the Paizo staff into what's called the leadership team. Jim Butler and Mike Webb. So Jim Butler is someone that's been working at Paizo for 4 or 5 years now. We've worked with him before when we are doing our con coverage. Mike Webb, what is his role? He is the distribute. What? Joined Zoki as distribute.
Okay.
Yep.
Paizo as I had that a second ago.
Yeah,
Vice
he
President
joined
of Sales
Paizo in
and
July
E-commerce.
2021, so he's fairly new to the company.
Yeah. Mike Webb is the Vice President of Sales and E-commerce.
And that's
sorry, Mike. So sorry. I have one more shout out to throw out there.
Oh, I have lots of shout outs. We haven't even started the shout outs.
Well, this one's kind of newsy and kind of a shout out. It's RPG Superstar.
Yes.
RPG Superstar 2021, presented by Roll for Combat. Theme this year is strange and unusual. Submissions are open. They're going to be doing an AMA. I'll be participating in that too. Stephen Glicker's running the show on Reddit, on the PF2 Reddit on this weekend. And, go check it out, rpgsuperstar.com. I'll be judging again this year, and it looks fun. And you've heard us talk about this plenty in the past, and if you haven't, go back and listen to our episode where we talk about the strangeness that was the Battle-Zoo Bestiary Kickstarter that became so much more. It's became something great. It's only strangeness in that much stuff doesn't usually come from one effort.
Steven's in chat now, and he's saying, Luis, you will also be involved in RPG Superstar.
I think
up.
I'm judging for sure, and we'll see
Yep.
what else I get.
Yeah. I look forward to it. I always love
in
working
the AMA?
Not in the AMA, no.
Yeah.
I think Mark Seifter will be there, so talk to
Fun.
him and get him to answer your questions.
I know I saw a couple of people this week saying that they got their hands on the Battles du Vestiaire, and they are quite happy.
Yeah. I've really when I got to see the advanced copies, I was just like giggling through several of the monsters, especially the one that's just this monster with its hook hanging from a tree attached to its back. I like that thing. Also, I like the parrot. I painted that parrot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I got for shout outs.
All right. Well, first of my shout outs, I like to go with the network shout outs first. And for a podcast, I want to shout out to the No Direction Special Edition that was out last week, talking about United Paizo Workers. Jess Redicop was on the episode, as was Shay Snow from Paizo. And this was originally intended to just be a news coverage about the union forming. But by the time this episode was recorded, the United Paizo Workers Union had been recognized voluntarily by Paizo. And so the tenor and purpose of the episode completely changed, which was nice. It was fun just kind of having a celebration, but also an acknowledgement of the things to come. Mm-hmm. And so, Perram, you and Vanessa as the host did a great job there.
It was good. I liked that we got to be in a good mood through that episode.
Yeah, it could have been a very different episode.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a very different episode. Yeah. All right, next up. Last episode, I mentioned that Scott DeYoung was joining the network as one of our new staff members. We've got two new staff members that are also joining the network. Nate Wright and Michelle Jones. They're both joining as staff members. And Nate and Scott both have new blogs. Nate posted Eldritch Excursion, the first edition of his blog, yesterday, in which, Eldritch Excursion is kind of like Fox's Cutting that Dustin does, in that it's a catch-all of basically whatever is on Nate's mind, he will be writing about it. And so he just decided to kick it off talking about heresy. What if you have a very religious character, but your relationship with the gods is antagonistic?
Oh. There's some novels about that.
Yeah. So Nate definitely picked a tone-setting topic to kick off Eldritch Excursion. And then today, almost along the same lines, for More Lore, the first edition of Scott DeYoung's new blog, he started talking about Ustalov and the shadow-haunted areas. So More Lore, he's going to be taking bits of lore that have been mentioned in the hardcovers but not explored any further than that, and giving a deep dive into that one thing that was hinted at in official Paizo products. So this is all his homebrew, and it's just comes from his love of the canon and the storyline of the Pathfinder campaign setting. So both of those went up yesterday and today. The new blogs are up for people to check out themselves. And finally, Big G Games has released a new game called No Filler. It is a board game. It is a party game, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because Danielle Reynolds, who hosts a Game Design Unboxed, which returned for its second season today, it's her first official design that has been published. She's been working in the game industry for a couple of years now, and specifically, she is working at GPI full-time. She's just in the game industry now. But this is her first official published design credit, and she's quite proud of it. So I recommend people check it out. It's at biggcreative.com/games/nofilter. All right, Perram, the episode is done. We're even a little bit early tonight, but we're not done.
No, we're not, because we'll be going over to the after party, Patreon's private sanctum. And if you wish to participate in the private sanctum, just join us over at patreon.com/nodirection and link your Discord account. Then jump over to the KD Discord server, which you can find the link at nodirectionpodcast.com. Jump down into the patron area, and you'll be able to join us as we talk about whatever you want us to talk about. That's the nature of the private sanctum. It's for y'all.
Luis, did you have anything you want to shout out to?
I mentioned it a few times already, but I think I just want to bring attention to Pathfinder and Starfinder Infinite. There's already a lot of cool stuff up there. I mentioned Dustin's expansion of the Spell Trickster. There's other cool stuff like Sheppy made isometric map and tokens.
Ooh,
And
cool.
Eleanor actually threw up her paper minis for Star Sugar Heart Love, which is great. I mean, you get them from the author herself. Lots of other cool stuff. There's like a conversion of some 1E APs to 2E, so you can get Curse of the Crimson Throne and Hell's Rebels. There's cool fiction. Lots of cool stuff already. And I'm upset with myself that I haven't kicked my butt into gear to get some of the stuff I want up onto Infinite, because I don't know. I have a lot of notes for Altameda and stuff from Valiant that now that we can use the Pathfinder setting and IP, well, I can get away with referring to Arcadia and stuff and not get into any trouble. So, just a matter of getting that put together and putting it up on Infinite. So lots of cool stuff. Check it out, and consider contributing in your own way. There's stock art, there's fiction, there's adventures. There's a lot of different ways you can have something on there that isn't just feats and classes and stuff.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Luis. Thank you for joining us tonight, to you and to our listeners. And until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.